Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. I'm here with Julia, who is not unfamiliar with this podcast. Didn't we just do one when did we do one? Like recently?
Like a month ago.
Yeah. She has beautiful 24-inch Isla hair in. I have a sweaty bun. But I put on my Balmain sweater to offset the bun. So
yeah,
it's fine. We're actually did a training together and then talked about some pretty deep shit, I'm going to say. Like we took it off the ledge. And now we're here to share a podcast with you guys.
Yeah. So dry the tears. Everything's fine.
Yeah, we're
fine.
We dried the tears. You suck those tears back in, Julia. There's no crying.
There's no crying in NBR.
What's so funny is you're like, I don't cry very much. I'm like, I know, because when you're like the mom, the salon owner, the boss, you're like, you train yourself. You're like, you suck those tears back in.
Yep.
Like literally, because you're like, I don't have time to feel right now. I just gotta like go. I got a tunnel vision. So kind of brings me towards our topic today of what did we decide our topic was? It was
letting go to rebirth a new you, right?
Well, yes. I was like, what did we decide to do? Yeah, letting go. I think that is probably the biggest struggle when I talk to any entrepreneur is letting go. Like at every level, even like with my husband, Garrett, I'm like, you know what you need to do? You need to let go. And he's like, no, I can't let go. I can't let go. And so it's like this dynamic of letting go, but still being like dialed in to what is the bigger outcome in this, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was sharing with you right before we got on this podcast that I feel like there's this level with every entrepreneur where it's like things are really hard and you're really uncomfortable. And so you have this idea of what success looks like. So you grind and you hustle and you work really hard and all of a sudden you hit this dream level of success. And then it's almost harder to get uncomfortable again because you're like, well, like I already did it. But the reality is like you have to see this newer version of yourself. And then that allows kind of you to be uncomfortable again because it's like, you're like, but I made it. Like I made it. Like I don't have to do this again. But it's like, even though you're successful, it's okay to want to be more successful, right? And
yeah.
I think that's where, at least for me and Garrett, where we hit these pockets where I'm like, I will never be satisfied with where I'm at. I know that sounds crazy, but like I am constantly like, well, I became this version of myself. What's the next version? And it comes with a cost.
It does, yeah.
It comes with a cost, and it's never easy, but it's always worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've always been that way as an entrepreneur. I've always been a visionary and what's next.
Right.
I don't think it was really until I found this that I was able to tap into this, meaning NBR, the Academy, BMS, that I was able to tap into that because I never believed to see myself another way until this came along.
How long have you done hair? I know I probably ask you this a lot, but...
I don't want to tell you.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, it can't be that long.
I don't know, like 22.
I stopped counting.
22 years.
I stopped counting at 20 years. I'm not gonna lie. I think I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So I kind of stopped counting at 20.
Like,
so we're just gonna say 20.
Are you my age?
No, I'm older.
You are?
I'm 41.
Oh, see, I felt like we were like right in the same window.
Because you're like
40.
almost 40.
I'm gonna be 40. Yeah, I'm gonna be 40.
I hope you're gonna have a big birthday bash.
I'm actually going to Bora Bora.
Oh.
I was going to do a big birthday bash, and then I was like, no, I want to go in one of those little magical huts and sit and do nothing for a week.
That sounds amazing.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But so you've been doing hair for a minute. You actually found NBR. How many years ago was that?
4.5 years ago.
And it just taught you a different way of thinking. I feel like when I created this academy and this brand and everything, I was like, I went through so much in my own personal life of like believing I was more than just a hairdresser. And abiding by the norms that hairdressers do. And really, it evolved me to who I am today, but also it evolved into this community and the academy and everything else in a different way of thinking, right? And so share with me, like, once you got inside of the academy, like, did you just start thinking differently? Were you like, I can become this bigger, better version of me? Like, how did it all start?
Yeah. Okay. So I used to have this routine. Mm-hmm. You're going to laugh.
I'm ready.
I would wake up every single morning and go for a run. Mm-hmm. And most people, when they're running, they like listen to some like gangster rap or something.
Oh, yeah,
which
sure.
I did before.
Okay.
Because I love gangster rap.
Same.
Like a lot.
Yeah, like 90s.
But I started listening to Oh, the podcast. But this is like after I'd already like drank the Kool-Aid. Okay. I was in Mastermind, all those things.
Oh, wow.
But there was something about starting my day with that mindset that really helped propel me. So run in the morning and BMS podcast. And then I would do my daily 4. And I just started to change and evolve inside of that morning routine.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like a lot of successful people, they have their, my morning routine is like critical to me. Like critical. I used to have like a lot of mommy guilt, feeling like I was taking time for myself. But then I realized that kind of like set up my day. And it's funny because I actually do a mixture of gangster rap and podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Like it just depends on my mood. I'm like, am I sprinting? Am I jogging? Am I running? I'm like, what is it? But I think there is like having that element of that routine where you can like, it sets your day up, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you started your salon. I think we talked about this on the last podcast. You have your salon in Washington, but then you jumped up and moved to Arizona. Why did you do that?
My kids. I just wanted a better life for them. So I have 3 kids. Hannah, the oldest, is 19. She graduated high school last year. And I have the 2 littles, and that is Harper and Hadley, and they are 10 and 5. And the last couple years, like in the midst of COVID, Washington got super weird. And we were just kind of seeing the changes and what was going on with our oldest and decided that we were going
wanted a different life.
Yeah. Yeah, we wanted a different life for our younger 2.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy too because you're like, you could stay there. You could say we're stuck here, you know. But I think, you know, doing it, like a lot of moms, I feel like we kind of do it for our kids, but ultimately it's like you kind of do it for the whole family, right?
Yeah.
How have your kids adjusted to the move?
Oh, they absolutely love it. They love Arizona. They love the sunshine.
Yeah.
Our pool's going to be done soon. They're going to even love it more when the pool's done. But also the schools are so much better, and they're just thriving.
It's kind of like a fresh start for you and your family. Garrett and I moved around a lot, and finally I was like, we got to land somewhere because our kids were getting older. And then we've been in California. I had my last 2 babies here, but we've been in California for like almost 10 years now, which is crazy. I'm like, okay, now this is like where we wanted to land. And Arizona might be your place where you're going to land. And what's cool, when Garrett and I moved to California, it was like almost like a chance to rebuild life to exactly how I wanted it, right? Like I just felt like where I was, and even Utah and Arizona, and then Arizona to California, that I was like, I physically need to move to a new place to create a better atmosphere for my family and children, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes I always tell them, like, sometimes you physically have to get out of wherever you're at, you know? So talk to me. So you're in Arizona right now, and you have your salon. You're kind of going back and forth, and it's been challenging. It's been sweaty.
It's been sweaty, yeah. So I started off going back every other week. So it was kind of like 4 days in Washington, 9 days in Arizona. But I come to California often too.
Yeah.
So sometimes that would be in the mix. So sometimes I'd be gone from the kids for like a week and a half. So starting in January, I decided I'm only going back to Washington once a month. And that's given a little bit of breathing room. But, you know, still doing the travel gig.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, when I moved from Utah to Arizona, I was going back once a month. And then I finally just kind of had to let go, right? I was like, why am I, like, it's so hard to say no to money, right? But you have to look at the cost of like the stress that is traveling and all this. Because I was so stuck in my head when I was traveling and doing hair. I was like, at the time, I was like, I need this money. I was helping provide for my family. Like, I'm like, I didn't really see any other choice because I hadn't built up my business yet. So for me, and at that point, I didn't know if I was going to stay married to Garrett. So I was like, I got to make money to take home and provide. And then I kind of got to this place where I was like, I just had to let go of my entire book of business in Utah. And it was really, really scary, but it opened up all this time and space. In the beginning, I was like, kind of is just nice to hang out with my kids, right? And then it also created this mental freedom where I was like, okay, what do I want to build here, right? And then I finally was able, I shared with you at lunch, like I was finally able to like fill my book of business inside of Arizona because I had to let go of this other piece. And it put a little bit of pressure on me to go out and market more, you know? And I was able to I had this story that I had to keep going back here. And I had this story that I did, but really, like, I built my brand there, and my identity was there, right? My family was there. Like, everything I knew was there. But then I was like, when it got to the point where it was no longer fun anymore, even though I like told myself I loved it, you know, like I kind of liked feeling like a boss, you know, traveling back there and like getting space away. But when it became not fun and stressful, I was like, why am I continuing to tolerate these behaviors in myself? And it really just came down to me like letting go. And I feel like there's been so many times in my life inside of business where the reason I've been able to grow to the company and the person I am today is because I keep letting go. But then I shared with you, don't let go too far where you're so far out of the mix that you have no idea what's going on, because then you're going to have to fight your way back in, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like been my experience, is like you have to let go but stay tapped in.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like we know this, but it's sometimes you have to talk it out, and you have to like entertain this idea or this possibility that like, okay, now that I've emotionally decided that I'm going to let this version of Julia die, then what does this new version of Julia look like? And then you can start doing you've emotionally let go, so now you can go in tactically and say, how am I smart about this?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like what does this actually look like?
Right. How does now that I've emotionally committed that this isn't working, even though I told myself it was working, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, I've finally committed. Like I know this. So now it's almost like a stress relief. It's like when you're on like social media. One year I was like, I'm going to do a bikini competition, and I said it, and then I was like, fuck, I don't know if I can do it. I was literally so scared. I was like, I don't know if I can do it. But because I professed it on social media, I had to do it. I was in. I'm like, and it was more like I just professed it to myself. I was like, I'm doing this. And so the minute I gave myself permission, guess what I stopped doing? Doubting. And I started seeing myself in this situation, doing this competition. Well, I'm using that as like an example, but like I literally had to like just commit. And then all of a sudden I could see myself doing what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when we let go, then all of a sudden we're like, it's not that you don't have another option, but you can see the higher version, the next version of you, but you couldn't see her before because you didn't let the old version of her die. You're still like bringing her along.
Right. Yeah.
But it's crazy.
I know. And I feel like too, there's so many times where we feel like I'm the only one that can do this. Mm-hmm. And so we don't delegate. We don't scale. Yep. All of these types of things when really other people are missing opportunities.
It's true. It's true. And it's funny because it's like, think about anything. Like I know we were like talking about like consultations, and I didn't get good at doing consultations over the phone until I started doing them a lot. And then I could really figure out what was working inside of that consultation and why I was able to sell that person to come sit in my chair, right? I wasn't like naturally good at, I was like, oh, consultation, oh, you don't want these? That's okay. And then I realized I'm like, oh, it's a fucking sales call. And I figured out my own frame. And so I think we get good at something, and then we're unwilling to let it go because it took us a while to get good at it. We're like, oh, do you know how fucking hard I work to get good at doing these? I'm not going to let it go to you. Like we're almost like selfish about it. We're like, no.
Right. But then it's like the weekend and you're like, cool, I've got 5 phone consultations when, I could be spending the morning with my kids.
Exactly.
But instead I'm like running away from them so that they don't scream in the phone.
Women are masters of multitasking. Like it's so true. I'm not gonna lie. I still do that to this day where I'm on a Zoom call and I'm like trying to multitask and play with my baby. You want to hear a really shitty mom moment I had last week?
Yeah.
So my 1-year-old baby she's just started walking, and she grabbed this glass jar of baby food, and I'm like, I should take that away. And I'm on a Zoom call, and I have a nanny there, but I was like, oh, I was feeling mom guilt. So I was like, I'll take her and play with her while I'm on my Zoom call. It's fine. So I'm watching her walk around with this little glass jar. All of a sudden, she trips, and it was like the most freak accident ever. She trips and lands and face butts the jar, and her tooth goes gunk.
Oh no!
And she's bleeding everywhere, and I'm like, ah! And I lift up her little lip. I'm like, where'd her tooth go? It literally got jammed up, and so she has no tooth. It's just up there.
Oh,
so I was like,
gosh.
Really, Danielle? Really? Like I was like having this like trying to multitask mom guilt moment. And I know better because now I'm like, if I'm home and I have time, I'm like, don't try to multitask and do this. It doesn't count for points. You're not even paying attention to your baby. You're being selfish. You just want your baby by you so you don't feel guilty. And now look at her tooth.
Totally. You want to know what's so funny? Hadley did the same freaking thing like a month and a half ago.
Really?
Her 2 front teeth.
Both of them?
I was working out, exercising.
It's not funny. It's not funny.
And she went into, both of them.
Which one's Hadley? How old?
The 5-year-old.
Were they her baby teeth?
Yeah, they were her baby
that's
teeth.
Good.
But yeah, she was taking her own
that just
shower
happened?
in my shower, and she tripped and jammed her teeth, and they were like, the roots were coming
Yes.
out.
What are we
And
learning?
we had to go and get them pulled.
Oh, you did get them pulled? Oh, mine.
We had
I
no
can
choice.
still see hers is still in there.
Oh.
I can see it's like up there, and I can just see like the tip sitting there, like. But then my doctor was like, if it doesn't go gray, it might like slowly come back down.
Oh, well, so then, just let it be.
Like,
Maybe it'll come back.
Yeah, I can see. How did you know you had to have hers pulled?
You could see, I mean, they were loose.
They were
roots were
loose.
like going like this out of her gums. It was disgusting.
Oh, weird.
Oh, yeah. So, but that was same because I'm such a busy person and like I was working out and not paying attention to my kid and went to take, it was a freak accident. But
but still,
anyway, very much a coincidence.
Yeah, that's kind of right. See, mine, I felt really bad because I literally went and played with her because for my own guilt, I felt like I needed to have my baby by me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you just see what happens. You're doing that. Like, she was fine with the nannies. You brought her down there because you were feeling guilty. I was like, damn it. So now I try to make like little pockets where I take my kids to lunch or I take them to the park. And it's like, it might only be an hour, but I'm like, that fueled me. You know what I mean? And I stay connected to my kids. And then I don't feel like this mommy guilt where I have to like do a Zoom call and bring my baby down. And now she's lost it too.
Right. I know. I mean, I can't tell you how many phone consultations where I've been like, mute the client really quick while they're talking and like threatening my kid's life. Like, you get inside now, otherwise I'm taking your iPad away forever.
And then you feel like such a mean mom. You're like, okay, well, I'm on the phone. So, and you're like finding yourself, I'm like, literally, I'm like, you kid, shut up right now.
I know. I always warn them first. I'm like, you guys, mommy is on a phone consultation.
You talk.
And so I go and hide in the backyard.
So if phone consultation, see, and this is the thing, like with anytime I get to this point where I'm like, why am I yelling at my kids for this? That like even down to like Saturdays or working Saturdays or whatever it is. I'm like, I love working Saturdays. I don't care until the point where I'm like resentful to my clients. I'm like, then I got to let go of Saturdays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So same thing as something as simple as like a consultation. You've gotten really good at it and your livelihood depends on you closing that consultation. So you're telling yourself that nobody else can do it.
Yeah.
But at the cost of working on Saturdays and telling your kids to shut up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that might be one thing where a small let go can help, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to always be these massive like, oh, I burned my salon to the ground or whatever. Sometimes it could be something as like, you know what, I'm done doing phone consultations or I'm done stocking retail or I'm done doing my hair orders. Like whatever it is inside the salon. It's like we hire a salon manager even and then we end up doing all the salon manager stuff and you're like, but why did I hire a salon manager, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So it's like you have to learn how to like let go and delegate.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I hired a virtual assistant I guess it was about 3.5 months ago. And I'm still doing so many things that I could be having her do.
Yeah,
but I'm like,
it's hard to delegate and train them.
It is. It's hard. Well, and there's like, she's from the Philippines. So like at first I was like, okay, like start making TikToks for me. And some of them were not, some of them like the verbiage was a little
off.
I'm like, that's, we don't say hairs.
Hairs. But you should let it fly. Let it go. Just tell her. Be like, no, you say hairs.
Oh my gosh! But then my staff is making fun of me. Oh. Like they're sending each other the TikToks. Like ha ha ha. I'm like, you little jerks.
It's funny too. Like talking about social media. It's so hard to. I think we always want to like you want to kind of delegate it, but there's no such thing as just like, oh, I'm done doing this here. You have to train them. You have to do it. You have to do it correctly, whether it's a phone consultation or your social media. I hear so many entrepreneurs that are like, I hired somebody to take over my social media and they sucked. I'm like, that's because you suck.
Right. Totally.
You didn't train them. You know what I mean?
It takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while, and it takes a little bit more bandwidth and a little bit more attention for a certain period of time for it to get better.
Yeah, for sure. So it's almost like you have to like submit to kind of like, it's not even slowing down. It's just literally like letting go. And then you're kind of like, oh, this isn't that hard. I just kind of have to course correct along the way. And you might lose a few leads or you might not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's consultations especially is like one of those things where the client, it could have been the consultation, it could have just been the client.
Yeah.
You know, like they weren't ready. They just had a few questions.
I mean, I don't close every single one.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, if that's like the one thing where you can delegate or let go, then that's like a start in the right direction. And like I said, the only time I feel like I let go is like a lot of times it's like when we're in that painful spot. So now I try to recognize before I hit that painful spot to learn to, you know, delegate or hire before I'm like drowning.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
And it's also, in a way, a little bit selfless because you are giving somebody else the opportunity to grow, right? Because otherwise, like, how are they supposed to grow? If there's somebody that works inside of your company, you need to trust them,
right,
to be able to grow to the next level,
right?
You know.
How many girls do you have at your salon?
In Washington, including me, there's 4. Although we are desperately looking for an assistant right now. So.
You don't have an assistant for any of you?
No, well, so Vic has been our assistant.
Oh, okay.
But Vic's now a licensed artist, and we need somebody else so bad. It's hard to find employees in Washington.
It's hard to find employees and assistants. It's hard to find assistants. I mean, I have a pretty big brand, and I still have a hard time finding assistants. I can't remember if I talked to you about this. When I was talking to Crystal, and we ended up changing because it was like during the pandemic when I'm like, we really need assistants, and we had like one for like 6 artists. And I was like, you know what? We need to change. I feel like I'm like, why does nobody want to come assist? Like, this is a great opportunity. And I was like, you know, I need to reframe it as an internship. And the minute we did that, because it is an opportunity. Like, they get to come train under you. They get to come learn all this stuff. They get to see it is an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
But when we say, oh, I'm hiring an assistant, it's almost like it puts it like a lower, like, who wants to be an assistant? But if you're like, oh, I'm an intern at Muse or whatever it is, it elevates at the frame. So we don't hire assistants anymore at DKW. We hire interns.
Oh,
and
okay.
we say, and this is what's so cool is we're like, hey, you get a year with us because we want them to work in the academy and do all that stuff. And we're like, you get a year with us, and at the end, if we don't want to put you on the floor, then we're only committing to a year with you right now. So even then, if like we're like, oh, you know, I mean, obviously I could fire them, but like I'm like, if I didn't want them to, like, if we didn't have space for them to be on the floor, then I'm like, thank you for your internship. Now go find a salon to work at.
Yeah.
So it gets so that I'm not stuck in a situation where I'm like, now I have this artist who's expecting to be put on the floor, or we don't have, you know, or we don't have space or room or whatever it is. But we always need assistants, right? You always need assistants, but you run out of chairs.
Yeah.
So we reframed it that way, and it's been working good. So I would maybe try, like, literally like getting on your stories and your social media and just say, hey, I'm offering an intern position. Even in Arizona, you could say, do you want to come? Because you're an educator. You're an educator for Educator Rose. Just be like, I'm looking for somebody to come intern. And if they don't know NBR, you buy them the online course. You're like, now you do.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. And that's, Arizona has not been the problem. So I've never, ever put anything on Indeed before. Have you ever used Indeed?
I know.
I was like, I was just throwing something at the wall to see if it, you know, stuck. And I put something on Indeed in Arizona. I think I had like 35 applicants. It was insane.
Really?
This is my second round of putting something on Indeed in Washington. And
what did you put on there?
0.
Oh, weird.
I know. People don't like to work in Washington. It's a thing.
So then I would go, you might be able to talk somebody into moving there, though, seriously. Like, because do you know that 2 of my interns moved here?
Yeah.
Like,
well, you know, April Fedora, she lives in Southern Oregon.
Oh, okay.
And she is coming, she's assisting us there once a month when I'm there.
Oh, okay.
Because she just wants the opportunity.
She wants to learn.
But she understands the value because she's in the academy.
Yeah, yeah. But you'd be surprised if you do need an assistant. Like, it might be something where if you start talking about it on your stories and your social media, like, you have to market to get an assistant. I know it sounds crazy. Yeah. Like, you can't just be like, I want an assistant, and you're going to get like 10 applications, or like Indeed's not working. So it's like, try social media, because you're going to reach people outside of Washington that might be interested, who live close enough that could possibly move there for this opportunity of being an intern there. Yeah. So I'm just thinking creatively through this.
I like it.
Right?
Thanks, Danielle.
Well, it's like, I'm always like testing things, and then if it works, I'm like, this worked. You should try it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm glad you like came on this podcast with me today. I know we like uncovered in our last training, we do this 90-minute call with my academy. My academy has just under 500 students in it, and we train hairstylists on naturally real hair extensions, but really business marketing, sales, community and culture is huge. Like, I think these calls have been so great because it just creates this accountability. Like, you can buy programs all day long, but if you don't have a community and a tribe and the accountability, you won't do anything with it. You won't even do the work.
No.
Like, you won't. Like, you have to have these check-ins. So we do these weekly calls every week with the academy, and whoever can show up live does. And if they can't, we send them a pre-recorded of this training. And I had asked Julia, it's very tough. I do it with my husband Garrett, and he's an intense man. And I'm like, can we hot seat you on maybe some problems and stuff that is going on in your business? So she so graciously allowed her personal life and her work life to be shared inside this training. And I think it really it helped you see things. And I think when we see things, other people benefit from it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my phone's been blowing up. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but so many students have been contacting me.
Yeah, they're just showing love.
Thank you.
Yeah, saying thank you. Mm-hmm. So it's like when you can be vulnerable like that, people are like, wow, that's powerful, right? Yeah. That's powerful. And that's what gives people like the love back to you, but it makes them want to be vulnerable. It makes them want to do more and be more and have this success in life. So thank you for being on the podcast. And also thank you for kind of like emotionally gutting yourself a little bit on the training, and just know it obviously does not go unnoticed. And I'm excited for your next chapter. And however I can personally be here to support you now that I'm like, now I feel like I know too much, but like, no, just like being like, however I can support, I want you to know you can text me and say, Danielle, I'm in a sticky spot. I will jump on a call with you.
Thank you.
Like, you don't need to reach out to just the trainers. Like, we've known each other for a hot minute. Like, I wouldn't be weird if you text me and said, I'm in a sticky situation. Can we set up a call? And I would love to help you through that.
I appreciate it so much. Seriously, you guys are the ones who like that. I am where I am because of you guys and what you've created. And the counsel that I've received from you has gotten to me where I am. There's no freaking way I would be where I am without what you've created. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I love hearing that. So sometimes it's hard when I get so focused. So when people do, I try to just like sit and say like, thank you. You know what I mean?
I think, again, we talked about that at the beginning of the podcast. When you have that entrepreneur like mindset, you're never satisfied. And so you don't ever sit back and smell the roses. Like I actually like make a huge, huge fucking difference. And you do. And so I hope that you take that time and realize it.
Yeah. Thank you. It is what pushes me to keep doing this, because it's like moments like this where I know this moment can happen tenfold with hundreds of thousands of artists. It can happen with me and you. It can happen with you and another student. And I feel like I'm building a very powerful community of leaders that are just showing up. So it's awesome. But all right, you guys, we're going to finish up today's podcast today. I'm excited to see Julia's progress. I've enjoyed it up to this point, and I'm excited to see this next version of Julia emerge. And when this next version of Julia emerges, like, we're all going to continue this growth train. And it's just such an honor for me to feel like I started something like this. So if you guys are interested in education with us, you can go to nbr.education. We have a 1-year academy program. We have an online course, and we have a few other amazing education opportunities coming soon. So just make sure that you're on our email list. And you can follow also Natural Beauty Row Hair Extensions on Instagram. And as always, tune into the podcast every Tuesday to hear another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. All right, you guys, that's it for today, and we will see you next week.